Welcome to Free Dive Live, episode number 25. My name is Ted Hardy. I'm the founder of Immersion Freediving as well as freedivingsafety.com. If you haven't visited freedivingsafety.com, you definitely should. It's a free online course that goes over the risks of the sport, the truth about blackout, truth about the fatality numbers, how to tell if you're overweighted. Unfortunately, many people are overweighted when they're freediving and or spearfishing. It's going to tell you, you're going to learn if you're breathing in such a way that would increase your risk of having a blackout. You're going to learn what is a loss of motor control, what is a blackout, and ultimately what to do if your buddy has a loss of motor control or a blackout. And if that's not enough reason to visit, there's a quiz, and at the end of the program, if you pass the quiz, you're going to get an email with discount codes from 9 of the sponsors of freedivingsafety.com. So learn to save your buddy, learn to save yourself, or save some money. But either way, there's no reason not to visit freedivingsafety.com. All right, so Free Dive Live, the format of the show, typically I start off with a entertaining or educational story. I pick one topic to discuss in depth, and then I answer your questions live at the end of the show. So for today, I'll be sharing a story of doing some, when I was doing some deep scooter freediving around 200 feet, and the reason I'm sharing that story is it has something to do with the topic that I'll be discussing, which is decompression sickness and freediving. So for those of you that are tuning in, as always, I'll be answering questions at the end. So if you have questions, you can just put those in the comments. I won't respond to them immediately, but I will address those at the end. And the other thing for those that are tuning in, if you could just let me know where you're from and if you've taken a freediving class, yes or no. I'm always interested to see if people that watch the show are people that have already gone through a program or haven't, and I'm also curious just where people are from. So if you let me know that in the comments, I would appreciate this. Now, another thing that's going to be interesting is during this show, at the end of the show, I'm going to be giving away one person's going to, I'm going to be giving away one access to my 28-day freediving transformation program. This is a course that's, I normally sell for $149, but someone's going to get access to it. I'll be going over how that person, I'll be giving away one of those. The winner will be announced tomorrow, but I'll be going over how that happens at the end of the show. Excellent, going through an ADA program, very cool. All right, so the most popular online course that I have is one of my free programs, right? And it's one of my courses to how to take a bigger breath. The idea is to increase your bottom time, right? So if you, one of the first things my students learn in class is they learn how to take a 20 to 30% bigger breath, and that's what basically this program takes. And it's just like a car. If you put 20 to 30% more gas in a car, it's going to go 20 to 30% farther. If you take a 20 to 30% bigger breath before you make a drop, you're going to increase your bottom time and you're going to hold your breath longer. So as always, at the end, when I'm done with the broadcast, I'm going to go back and update the post, and I'll put all the links into that, right? So you can access the link to that free course. But it's the most popular course that I have. I have more people sign up for that course than any other course. All right, so this was probably 7 years ago. We were at Performance Freediving runs a freediving competition every year in Grand Cayman, and it's run by Kirk Kroc, who's the founder of Performance Freediving, and he used to work at a dive shop down in Grand Cayman. So the deal was he knew that whatever day of the week it was, I think it was Wednesdays, right? That every Wednesday there was this one trip that all the kind of like the best of the tech divers would get invited on, right? You couldn't like sign up for it on the website. Like you had to get invited. You had to have everything sorted, and they would go to this deep wreck that was about at 200 foot. So Kirk knew they were going to be there, so he wanted all of us as the freedivers to show up, and then we were going to go freedive on the scooters down there with them, right? So you got to understand, right? You know, if I'm doing my deepest dive is 279 feet. I mean, back then I was probably, I was doing, 200 plus foot, right? But if I can do a free dive to 200 foot without a scooter, you put me on a scooter, now I can go down there and actually hang out down there, right? Because I'm just pressing the button. I just have the ability to equalize. So anyway, the deck of this thing is at 200 foot, right? And so we're all free diving down to the wreck and, making passes around all the tech divers that are heading up. So we can basically on one dive go down, make a tour of the wreck, come up, right? And that takes the divers, 6 hours, right? Because they got to decompress or however long it takes them. It takes them a long time. So one of the things that happened is, there are all the tech divers down there. I thought they would be super excited to see us, right? They're not, right? I'd be cruising along and I'd see one up ahead and I figured, I'd be like, hey, what's up, dude, right? And they'd be waving at us, whatever. Every time, right? As soon as you get close to one of those guys, they almost all had cameras, right? As soon as you get up to them, they take their camera and they're like, oh, no, I'm just looking over here. I'm trying to do this macro shot. And they were just trying to absolutely ignore us. Like, they wouldn't make eye contact with us. They would ignore us. And so, we're up at the surface talking and Kirk's like, man, are these guys like ignore? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, they're pissed, right? We're out cooling them. So they don't want to admit that we're down there. So they're kind of just like ignoring us. Right. And then of course the funny part is then when they're decompressing, they're sitting on the line for, hours and we're still running around playing. Right. So one of the things that you're going to learn when I go through the decompression sickness and freediving is we absolutely diving to those kind of depths do run risk of decompression sickness, and we obviously have protocols to fix that, but especially the depth that we're diving to, 200 foot, right? And then, you kind of added element of the scooter, which is making it going up and down so fast. So what's funny is I was at the surface and a guy comes up and says, what are you doing? Now, I feel a little funny about saying this, but anyway, I'm not going to get into exactly what we were doing because I do believe there is a risk for being injured if you don't know what you're doing. So I'm not going to go over how we did it because anyway, we're diving to that depth. We are breathing on pure oxygen, right, to help relieve the decompression sickness. But absolutely, I'm not going to go into the details of all that because if you don't know what you're doing, you can absolutely kill yourself by breathing. This guy walks up to us and I'm breathing off the oxygen. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm breathing off this oxygen. He's like, oh my God, no. He's like, no, you oh my God, you're going to kill yourself. Right. I said, no, I'm actually doing this to reduce the decompression sickness. And I started going through all the protocols and stuff that we're doing. Well, he was Neil Pollack. He was the head researcher for Dan. And so we started going through all this stuff, what we were doing. He's like, who are you guys? And I'm like, we're here with Performance Freediving. He's like, oh, you're the guys I'm studying tomorrow. So oddly enough, he was on our boat the next day and he was Doppler testing our hearts, looking for nitrogen bubbles in our blood. And he only found a little bit in it. We're all disappointed that we couldn't find any nitrogen in our blood when he did the test with us. And it's because that day we were kind of diving more shallow. But anyway, but yeah, so but we were following very specific protocols in order to reduce our risk of decompression sickness. And that's what I'll be going over in this episode. So as always, remember, if you guys have questions for me at the end of the show, I'm going to go and answer your questions, right? And so I always tell people, like, unless your roommate is a freediving instructor with 10 years of experience, this is a pretty darn good opportunity to get your question answered. So I would imagine if you're watching, you got something in there around your brain that you're not quite sure about with freediving, now's your chance, right? Put them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer the question at the end of the show. All right, another one of my programs that I definitely recommend, especially for people that are maybe newer to freediving and haven't taken the freediving courses. I have a program called Breath Hold Secrets. It's $39, and it goes over the biggest secret to holding your breath. And the biggest secret to holding your breath it's not what you do during the breath hold, it's what you do before the breath hold. If you talk to anyone that's taken a freediving class, whether it's a PADI class, PFI, AIDA, Apnea Caddy, SSI, whatever, they all walk out of that class and go, holy cow, I held my breath for so long. I couldn't believe how I remember for 3 minutes, I remember for 5 minutes, right? Whatever they did, but they're super jazzed about how long they held their breath, right? Why? Because in a freediving class, every freediving instructor knows the secret to holding your breath is not what you do while you hold your breath, it's what you do before you hold your breath, right? So Breath Hold Secret program's going to go over all that stuff, right? And again, at the end of the show, I'll put the link up. If you want to take a look at that program, you can. All right, so let's talk about decompression sickness and freediving. Okay, so they always said freedivers couldn't get bent. Kirk, the guy that runs Performance Freediving, right? He was always told freedivers can't get bent. So guess what he thought? He's like, well, I can't get bent because that's what everyone says, right? It is known, right? So Kirk was freediving in Grand Cayman, and he was on a scooter. And he was on, I think, this was so long ago, I think he was going to break some Guinness World Record for something on a scooter. I don't know the details. It was a really long time ago. But it was the first time he was on a scooter, right? So he bombs down to 50 meters. Right, so for Kirk, going down to 50 meters, I mean, he can do a 50-meter dive all day long, right? And then you do it on a scooter, you're just holding on and pressing the button. All you have to do is equalize, right? So he gets down there, and he can hang out there for 2-3 minutes, right? So he has a nice long hang, right? He comes up and he's like, "Oh my God, that was amazing! That was so cool!" Right now, is Kirk winded after doing a 50-meter dive on a scooter? No, right? Because that's basically like him doing a 2-3 minute static, right? I mean, it's a little more work than that, but it's not a difficult dive for him. So when he hits the surface, it's not like he's wore out and he needs this super long time to get situated, right? So he waits a couple minutes, boom, he does a dive to 60 meters, right? Almost 200 foot, and while he's down there, again, he stays down there for a good 2-3 minutes. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, there's this little arch a little bit further down. If I can go down a little bit further, I'll be able to go through this arch and wing through here and turn around and come up." Right? So he's all excited. He comes up the surface again, waits for a couple minutes, and then does this other dive, and he's almost in the 80-meter range, right? And he goes through some arch or whatever, and he hits the surface. So at that point, he's still in the back of the boat, right? And he's starting to get on the back of the boat, right? He takes his fins off, puts them on there. And he's on the back platform about to pull himself up, and then he notices he's got tingling in his feet, right? And it starts at his toes and it starts working its way up, and he's kind of, well, that's kind of odd, right? And that tingling starts to work its way up his shins, right? And then it starts to work its way up his thighs, right? And then it starts to go past his hips up to his torso, and then he realizes that tingling is not just tingling. He can't move wherever that tingling is, right? And so now at this point, he can't move his legs, right? And that tingling sensation is moving up, right? And so he's like, "Holy crap, like I'm about to be unable to move my arms," right? Because it's rising up like this, right? So he had his mask on his forehead, and he's like, "I'm about to fall into the water," right? And so the last thing he does, he takes the mask and sticks it on his forehead, and then right then he, basically loses control of his arms, and he just plops and he falls down in the water. Unconscious. Now, obviously, there were people on the boat. They saw him, they grabbed him, they put him in the back of the boat, and he was unconscious and feet going like this for 17 minutes, right? Direct type 2 neurological hit, right? So they run him to the decompression chamber. Kirk was a very highly accomplished technical scuba diver. He was doing 500-foot dives, on scuba tanks before they even, rebreathers could do any of that stuff. So he was him and his crew were very well versed in technical scuba diving. There's no question he was bent, right? He was exhibiting absolute type 2 DCS hit. And so they take him to the recompression chamber and they say, "Hey man, he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, I was free diving." And it's like, no. You little free divers, you can't get bent. Just go away. That's not, you didn't get bent. It must be probably the vagus nerve or something. But and they wouldn't put him in the chamber, right? They wouldn't put him in, and so all he could do was go home and access pure O2 and suck on as much O2 as he could for as long as he could, right? Luckily for him, his symptoms went away. And at that point, Kirk said, yeah, that whole freedivers don't get bent, that's not true. And so he became quite interested in researching decompression sickness and freediving. And here's the problem. There wasn't a lot of research into that, right? So if you think about it, scuba diving and decompression sickness is very well understood. And does anyone know why we understand that so well? Well, the reason we understand that so well is the Navy bent a bunch of pigs. They put them down in the recompression chamber and they got an idea of how it works. And then they bent a bunch of Navy divers, right? So they basically, the recompression chamber is a machine that simulates them going down to depth, right? So basically they put one guy, they put him in the chamber, they take him down to depth, they bring him up. Oh yeah, that guy's messed up. That was too far. That was too long. Next guy in, they took him in there and they pull him down, bring him up. That guy's still messed. I think he got messed up too, right? So that one was too long, right? And so they literally did that, over and over and over again until eventually they figured out how to do it where they don't bend them. So you can imagine that experiments like that, they don't, we can't do stuff like that anymore, right? I mean, so like, if the Navy would ever call us up and say, hey, we're doing some interesting experiments on freediving in DCS. You guys want to come down? We'd be like, yeah, but thanks. You call someone else, right? So we don't have, firsthand data like that we do with scuba, because we don't they don't allow people to do experiments like that for obvious reasons. So the best Kirk could find is there was a Greek researcher who had done some studies on a spearfishing community, and it was they were sustenance spearfishing to support their village. And what had happened over many decades is in the beginning they would spearfish in 40 or 50 foot of water, and over time they fished out that area, and then they would spearfish in the 60 to 70 foot, and then eventually they fished that out, right? And then they had the 80 foot, and at some point they had to go down to the spearfish at 100 foot to feed, because there were no fish left, but they couldn't free dive to 100 foot, right? That's hard to free dive to 100 feet, certainly spearfishing. So then they started doing variable ballast drops. So they would have rocks and they would hold on to on a rope to allow them to go down to depth, and then they would do it, and then they would come up, and they wouldn't need the rocks. They got a guy on the boat, throwing the rocks back and forth. And around that kind of depth, also with the variable ballast involved, they started reporting DCS type symptoms. Okay, so this was a situation where, this researcher wasn't forcing people to get bent. They were already bending themselves anyway. And so he went in there and he started recommending all these different rules, like try doing this and try doing this. And I'm oversimplifying what's happening. But eventually he said, if they follow these protocols, they seem to no longer exhibit DCS type symptoms. Okay, so what this Greek researcher did is he created this freediving table. Now, when I taught scuba, I taught tables. Even though computers had everything, I still taught tables. I don't know if they even do that anymore. They probably don't. They probably just all do computers. But anyway, freediving, the scuba tables, right? The general public does not like the scuba tables, right? So the freediving tables was let me be clear. It's like 20 times more complicated than the scuba tables, right? So when I say as complicated as that thing was, that means the freediving tables this guy created, it's a PhD only endeavor, right? Ain't no one gonna go through and do all this, calculate all this stuff, right? So what Kirk did is he extracted a couple of rules from this big whack of a mess of jargon that no one's gonna fool with, right? And then the idea is these are the rules that PFI recommends to reduce your risk of decompression sickness while freediving. Okay, so those rules, and the first rule is pretty common among freediving classes. A lot of them will have similar type of recommendations. And that rule is, if you're diving for a minute, you want to, at a minimum, rest at the surface for 2 minutes. If you're doing 30 dives, you want to rest at a minimum 3 minutes. If you're doing 2-minute dives, rest at a minimum 4 minutes, right? So the idea is to double your bottom time, right? Your surface interval, your time on the surface between dive wants to be twice your bottom time. Now, and that is to reduce risk of DCS symptoms, decompression sickness. Now, I always say that rule, that's your minimum. You want a minimum of double the dive time, right? So people call me on the phone and they say, hey, Ted, right, I'm just about to click the button and sign up for the course. And if you can guarantee me, if you could just say, Ted, I guarantee you this course will give me 10 seconds extra bottom time, 10 or 5, I would sign up right now. And right, because I'm a smart ass, I'm like, look, if all you want is 10 extra seconds bottom time, save your money. You don't need to sign up for a freediving course. Just wait 1 extra minute on the surface and you will absolutely get the 10 seconds bottom time that you're willing to pay me all this money for, right? If you rest longer on the surface in between dives, you are going to increase that time on the bottom, right? So I always tell, from a DCS symptoms, performance freediving, and many agencies will recommend that you want to wait twice as long as your downtime was, but I will tell you that's at a minimum, right? If you want to increase your performance, rest more. And you will. Not surprising. And if you get a freediving watch and you look at how much time you're resting versus how much time you're diving, you're going to find there's a pretty strong correlation between those two numbers, which is one of the many reasons I recommend that all freedivers use a freediving computer, and then look at that data. Look at how long you rest and look at how long your bottom time. And if you find out, wow, when I rest that extra minute, I'm going to get that extra bottom time, you're going to make the time to rest that extra time because you want more bottom time. We all do. Okay? So, that That recommendation isn't for everything though. That's only for a certain depth, right? So PFI recommends that between 0 and 82 feet or 25 meters, you want to be doubling your surface interval. Now, when we start diving deeper than that, the times go up, and that's when people really start not following those rules. If you're diving between 25 and 40 meters, which is 82 feet and 133 feet, it's 8 minutes, and that's and that one for sure is not typically followed. And what I'll tell you about these rules is, it's just like the scuba tables. The scuba table says, I haven't been scuba diving so long, but let's say it's 100 feet. It tells you it's 13 minutes on air. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I haven't looked at the table in forever. But let's say it is, right? You can stay down for 13 minutes, right? If you stay down for 15 minutes, that doesn't mean you're going to get bent. That means that the likelihood you're increasing your risk for getting bent, right? So if you're doing dives to 120 feet or whatever 20 35 meters or whatever, and you're not waiting 8 minutes between every dive, that doesn't mean you're going to get bent, right? It means you're increasing the risk. And you have to understand these rules that PFI has, they're an extrapolation from something that's not nearly as scientific as like the scuba diving tables where we bent hundreds of people. Now, what I'll tell you is, well, actually, and then deeper than that, like when I was on the scooter, right? We're for 25 meters to, or to I guess was 200 foot, right? 60 meters. We're diving. It was 18 minutes between dives, right? So when I was on that scooter, I was actually waiting on the surface 18 minutes. Between dives to reduce the risk of decompression sickness. Now, let's talk about who gets bent, right? There's certain types of classifications of people that get bent, right? Your snorkelers, they ain't getting bent, right? Your one type of people that get DCS symptoms while freediving is deep competitive freedivers, right? We have seen, competitive freedivers that are going, in the 100-meter range and deeper. We've seen situations where they get bent just on one single dive for DCS type symptoms. We see, and another type is the recreational freediver, especially, and we definitely see spear fishermen that are starting to get bent. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, recreational freediver and spear fishermen, they're just getting better, right? Because they have access to more courses and they have access to stuff, so they're actually able to stay down quite a long. And we see it during spearfishing tournaments. So I don't know the exact details on it, but I know the spearfishing world championships 1 or 2 years ago. It was somewhere where the fish were crazy deep, so they were having like free dives like 150 feet. So what's that? 45 meters, 50 meters, to be able to spearfish. And something like a third to a half of them were getting DCS type symptoms. They were diving so crazy deep, and they were diving for such a long time, right? Because the way spearfishing tournaments work, you typically check in at 8 a.m. and then you have to be back at 6 p.m. right? So the guys that can dive quite deep, right? They might go to their super secret spot, and let's say that is a wreck at 30 meters or possibly 40 meters, and they're doing this all day long, right? Diving down, coming up, diving down, coming up, diving down, coming up, diving down, coming up, right? And then at the end of the day, you look at how much time they spend at 30 or 40 meters, right? And they might spend 2 hours at that depth with rapid ascents on each one, right? If you know anything about scuba decompression sickness, you're like, that maybe sounds not so good, right? And those people are going to be typically not going by that 8-minute rule. And those are people that tend to run into increased risks of decompression sickness. Now, the most common way I think people get bent, as I know scuba instructors this has happened to, is combining scuba and freediving, right? So I know, so if you're a scuba diver, right, scuba instructor, and let's say you go down on the wreck, let's say you're in the Keys and the wreck's at the deck's at 30 meters, right? So you or 100 feet, right? So you do your scuba dive all the way down to the deck, right? And they're a scuba instructor, so they're doing everything right. When they're done with their dive, they're going to come to the line. They're going to come up nice and slow, slower than their slowest bubble or whatever their computer says. They're going to do a safety stop at 15 feet, 5 meters for 3 to 5 minutes, and they get on the boat. Then when they get on the boat, they take their scuba gear off and they throw it on the deck of the boat, right? And they put their long blade freediving fins and they go, watch this. And they go down to the bottom and they touch the deck at 100 feet. Here's the question. When they come up, do they come up fast or slow? Fast. They're freediving, right? What do they do when they get to 15 feet? They're flying right by, right? So here's the question. When they took their scuba gear off and placed it on the boat, did all the nitrogen in their blood magically like pop out of their blood and get attached to the regulator in the BC? No, all the nitrogen's still in the system, right? So when they make that free dive and they fly down to the bottom and they fly up, that's really no different than them having a scuba tank on and flying down and flying up. The nitrogen's still in the system and they're making rapid ascents, right? And so absolutely you can get bent that way, right? I know of freediving instructors, scuba instructors that have bent themselves that way, right? So there, when you absolutely increase your risk if you go free diving after scuba diving. If you go free diving after scuba diving, you are absolutely increasing your risk of having decompression sickness because you have all the nitrogen in your system, just like a scuba diver. And if you are scuba diving and you want to like that, up and down, up and down, up and down, any scuba diver or instructor will be like, oh, no, you can't do that. You're going to get bent, right? So definitely very risky to go free diving after scuba. So after I say many times, don't go free diving after scuba, the question I always get is, okay, well, what if I do it the other way, right? I'll just go free diving first. That's a problem too. And here's why. When we go free diving, we're absorbing nitrogen. How do we know that? Because free divers do get bent. They would not be able to get bent unless they were not absorbing nitrogen. So they are absorbing nitrogen. How they are absorbing that is quite complicated beyond the scope of this. And to be honest, we don't really have a lot of data on it. Like we can't, there's no dive computer out there that reliably will tell you how much your nitrogen level you have. There's no table that we can fill out. So the idea is we know we're absorbing some nitrogen because obviously free divers get bent, so that must be happening. But if I go free diving at 30 feet for an hour, and then I go free dive at 70 feet for an hour and a half, and then I sit on the boat for 15 minutes and I'm going to put on a scuba tank and do a 100-foot dive, there's no way of knowing how much nitrogen is in your system. Therefore, there's no way of knowing how to alter your dive, right? When you go scuba diving on multiple dives, there is a known way to figure out how much nitrogen's in your system so that when you're doing subsequent dives, you know how to adjust everything, right? So we don't know how to do that, right? So the rule, performance free diving and myself teach our students is scuba dive and free dive on separate days, right? That rule sucks because I still like to do things, right? I still like to do both, but when I go, I have to make a choice. So what we typically say is scuba dive and free dive on separate days, certainly the safest way to do it. Now, let's see, what was I going to say? Bear with me. Yeah, but basically, when you're, it's just to do it on 2 separate days. Going to be the safest way to do it. All right. So if you guys have questions, you can put those in the comments, and I will go through and address those. Yeah, Jeff, I remember hearing about all that for sure. All right, if you guys have questions, put them in the comments. If there's no questions in there, I'm just going to go away to giving away the 28-day program. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I have a 28-day freediving transformation program. If I ask a freediver, if I ask a spear fisherman, Tommy, exactly what I'm going to tell you right here. If I ask a freediver or a spear fisherman the following questions, would you be interested in diving deeper? They always say, yes, Ted. Would you be interested in increasing your time underwater for whatever it is you do underwater? They always say, well, yeah, of course, Ted. Right? Then I say, would you be interested in feeling more comfortable and confident when you're at depth and not feeling panicky? They always say, well, yeah, of course I would, Ted. Right? Then I say, okay, what are you currently doing right now to achieve that result? And the most standard answer I get is, well, I go diving whenever I can, but it's hard because of the wife and the kids and my job, right? It's hard to get out there and do that, right? But going diving, while that is helpful, that is not specific and targeted training. That's just hoping that if you go diving that you're going to get better, right? There's no serious athlete who's serious about a sport that doesn't do specific and targeted training, right? Like if you ask like a football player, he doesn't just say, well, I just play football, 4 days a week and I'm going to get better. No, they play football, but they also go to the gym. They do cardio training. They do interval training. They do stretching training. They do all these parts and pieces, right? And there is one group of freedivers that are extremely well versed and how to train is as competitive freedivers. We can dive incredibly deep. We can stay down a crazy long time, right? Now, why most recreational freediver or spear fishermen are like, well, those competitive freedivers are crazy and they're idiots. But we dive crazy deep. You should be very interested in how we do that and apply the techniques that we use for whatever it is that you want to do underwater. And I'm telling you, one of the ways that we can do that, my deepest dive is 279 feet. My longest breath hold is 7 minutes. And I'm not an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination, right? I joke in my class that I have a body built by beer, bourbon, and barbecue. My average student is in better shape than me, lower body fat than me, lower resting heart rate, better than me in every way. But the reason that I am able to do what I've done in the sport is I've done very specific and targeted training to allow me to do that, right? So the 28-day transformation program provides 5 of the most effective and time efficient training exercises that you can do at home, and that's awesome. As I said, at home. If you're lucky enough to be able to go diving 7 days a week, then you don't really need this program, right? Because that is awesome training. Most people are extremely limited by the time they can spend in the ocean and at depth. So this allows you to do that training at home. The way the program is set up is it's 28 days of training, right? And you get access to it. You can access the videos forever. You don't only have 28 days to do them. But you're going to get very specific training exercises to do every day. In fact, you're going to get three breath holding exercises to do a week, and each one is different because each one is going after a specific a weakness. 2 of them you're not gonna like. They're kind of hurt, but hey, that's just the way it works, right? If it hurts, it works. But and one of them, I think is the most powerful exercise that I designed, is in fact quite easy, right? And that's the one that's going to teach you to delay and minimize your contractions. My students are giving me feedback on that one. They really like that one because it's teaching their body how to delay and minimize the contractions, which is certainly important for whatever type of diving you're doing. So you got 3 breath holding exercises a week, and it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to pop, right? The last, and then 2 days of the week you're going to do stretching, 5 minutes of stretching exercises. So it takes about 2 hours a week, right? So you stack that together for 28 days, right? And you're going to radically alter your freediving physiology, strengthen your mammalian dive reflex so that you're going to be much better suited to freediving. You're going to be able to dive deeper. You're going to be able to hold your breath longer bottom time, and you're going to feel more relaxed and comfortable at depth, which I would argue is the most important part, right? And this is stuff that, some of the exercises in there is stuff that all competitive freedivers do every day, right? So this stuff absolutely works. Now, not only do you get access to the training, right? You're gonna get I get a calendar that you're gonna stick on the refrigerator so you can write your progress. I always say stick on the refrigerator. That way, anytime you're going in the fridge, you're getting a beer or a bonbon, it's reminding you that you're supposed to do the training. You get access to a private Facebook group where you can all the students put their workouts in every day. So they say day 1, this is what I did. Day 2, and they put your times up there, and the students can watch and motivate each other. And also my kind of new thing I do every morning is I take the computer, I go outside, I have my coffee, and then I answer everyone's questions, right? So you have questions about the training, you can ask me and I'm going to answer you directly, right? So you get access to the private Facebook group. You're also going to get access to the other program that I talked about earlier, Breath Hold Secrets. That's included in the 28-day program. You're also going to get access to Noob Spearos, which is their Australian spearfishing podcast. They have an ebook called 99 Spearfishing Tips. So it's an awesome book if you're looking for tips about spearfishing. And then you also get an interview with Jeremy Gamble. If you're a spearfisherman, this is a must-have interview. It goes over how he took my freediving class and how he integrates all the safety procedures he learned with me, but how he actually makes it work for spearfishing, right? So you get all of that, right? And so that program is $149. I'll put a link to it when I'm done with the presentation. But someone by tomorrow is going to win that for free. So how is that going to work? So you guys, if you're watching this, I don't know where you're watching. You might be watching on Deeper Blue. You might be watching on my personal Facebook page. You might be watching on my immersion page. You might be watching it on YouTube. I don't know where you're watching it because this thing is all over the place. So if you're watching this and you want to, and you want to be one of the people that want to win, first thing you got to do is just put in the comments wherever you're watching. Just put in the comments that you want to win the 28-day freediving transformation program. That's step 1. Put that in the comments, right? Wherever you're watching this from. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Deeper Blue, wherever you're watching it, you're going to go to Immersion Freediving's Facebook page, and you're going to share this video on here. So if you're watching it on Deeper Blue, don't share it on Deeper Blue. If you're watching it on my personal Facebook page, don't share it there. Go to Immersion Freediving, right, on Facebook. You're going to find this video with me, and you're going to hit the share button, and you're going to hit the share button, and then explain why you want to win this program, right? And so then tomorrow at the end of the day, I'm going to look at all the people that entered, and whoever I think has the best reason is going to win, right? So that's basically how it works. So again, just to be sure, in the comments, wherever you're watching, and say, I want to win the 28-day program, 28-day freediving transformation program. Then you're going to go to Immersion Freediving's Facebook page, not my personal page, not my YouTube page, not the Deeper Blue page, Immersion Freediving's this, and you're going to share it. And then when you share it, you're going to put your reason on why you want to win the program, right? And then tomorrow, by the end of the day, I'll go through and pick the one that I like the best, and I will reach out to you via Facebook to let you know. All right, so I see two of you guys in there. You guys know what to do. You've done the first part, and then just at some point do the second part, and then I will pick the winner tomorrow. Excellent, South Carolina. There's two good freediving instructors in North Carolina that are near you, Jeff. Sam Blunt, Frontline Freediving, and then Ren and Ashley from Evolve Freediving. And they're both based out of Raleigh. So if you're looking for a freediving class that's nearby, those are two that I would for sure recommend. Right? So look, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Like as always at the end, I'm going to put links to all the stuff that I talked about. So if you want to get the 28-day program but you don't win it, right, I'm going to put a link up there so that you can access it. I also am going to put, when I put it up there, I'm going to put a coupon code that'll take, I'll take 15% off the price of any of the programs, including the 28-day program. And that coupon code will be good for 24 hours. So I'll put that on there. Another thing that I would really appreciate that you guys that watch the show, right, is the one of the last links will be a link to a survey, right? So in the survey, it's going to ask you things like, have you taken the class before? Have you not taken the class? Are you a free diver? Or, you spearfish, whatever. And then there's one of the last questions at the end, as I just say, what would you like to see out of the show, right? I create this show for you guys. I want to hopefully be entertaining and provide education, but I create it for you guys. So if everyone is telling me I wish the show was like this, and this, well, I'm going to do that, right? Because I want to make the states. My virtual assistant is going to email you, is going to actually physically place you in the mail some freediving safety stickers. And right now, that's the only way you can get those stickers. I used to do that myself, or I used to not do that myself because I said I was going to mail them and I never mail them because I just can't stand mailing things and envelopes. I'm just terrible at it. So now my virtual assistant has the stickers and she just mails them out, and she does it because that's her job and she's awesome at it. So yeah. Well, Johnny, glad you tuned in. I hope you enjoyed the show. So I'm gonna wrap this thing up. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will the show will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm not gonna be able to do it on Monday, but it will resume on Tuesday and Wednesday. Right. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. Dive safe out there. It's not even that hard, especially considering you can go to freedivingsafety.com for free and learn the risks of the sport, the truth about blackout, how to tell if you're overweighted, right? What a blackout looks like, and what to do if your buddy has one, right? And you can get that and access that at free. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we'll see you guys next week.